Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Goway Pro Travel Tales. Hear stories from industry experts, travelers, explorers, and globetrotters who will inspire you to dream bigger, explore further, and discover a new world. Today, I'd like to welcome Kate Fulton, coming to us live from the Gold Coast. Kate not only lives on the Gold Coast, that's correct, you actually live there?
Sure do.
Okay, but she represents the Gold Coast under the entity of Experience Gold Coast, and as you can guess, today we're going to talk about the Gold Coast. By looking at your business address, Kate, on your email, I see that you're literally across the road from the famous beach, well, actually technically beaches, if you look at the Gold Coast, which we'll get into in a minute, that stretches along the Gold Coast in Surfers Paradise, which is not only an apt name, but it's also the colloquial name of the area as well. Often referred to as Australia's favourite playground, the Gold Coast can be best compared to in popularity as Florida and its beaches, can be compared in popularity as Florida and its beaches are to North Americans and spring breakers. Now, I'm not sure if that's changed, but when I was a kid, that was a sort of good high school getaway for a lot of high school kids. I'm not sure. Has that changed, or is that still one of the...
No, definitely still the same. It's almost like a rite of passage for many Australians to come and have a holiday on the Gold Coast. Often you talk to people and they bring up fond memories of coming to the Gold Coast as a kid or as a family, and it's kind of nice to have that kind of nostalgic angle to the destination.
Yeah, 100%. Now, before we get into more detail about the Gold Coast, Kate, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up becoming involved as a representative of the Gold Coast?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Experience Gold Coast for almost 10 years now. In June, it'll be 10 years. And I've always worked in our international marketing team. So at the moment, I oversee our marketing efforts across our Western markets. So that being North America. And also New Zealand is a very big market for the Gold Coast because we've got direct flights into the Gold Coast from New Zealand. I've been living here for probably almost 20 years. I'm actually originally from Victoria, but I saw the light and decided I couldn't do another winter. Yeah. It is very cold in Melbourne. And I moved up here and I studied up here on the Gold Coast, and I actually did a Bachelor of Business in Tourism Management. So did that, and here I am. I'm still here, and I absolutely love it. It's an incredible lifestyle.
Yeah, it is a great area. And many people from the country moved there, as my grandparents did. They retired there. So I've actually spent a lot of time in and around the Gold Coast. My mother lived in a very small town called Noonanbar. Many names in Australia have Aboriginal origin. Mm-hmm. And Noonanbar is very close to the Gold Coast, and also a really beautiful natural site called the Natural Bridge, which is a waterfall which sort of goes through, like it's over the millennia, dug its way through the rock. So it goes through a hole in the ground now, or in the rock, into a beautiful, almost bottomless, I wouldn't say billabong, but basic swimming area. So that's all very accessible from the Gold Coast as we discuss it. Now, Kate, prior to our little interview today, sent me a couple of infographics, and I'm going to just start off with the basics. So I'm going to read from this, and I'll throw it up on the screen for those that are watching. These are some of the key things, and these are some of the basics, but I'll let Kate expand on it. So the population is about 732,000 in the area, and we'll discuss what the Gold Coast is from a regional point of view. It hosted the 2018 Commonwealth Games and co-partner of Brisbane's 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Top 10 most welcoming cities on Earth in 2023. 100,000 hectares. What would that be in acres? Any idea?
I think it's 100. Oh, gosh. It's too early in the morning here to use that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's too late at night here. Put it this way, it's a lot of nature reserves, World Heritage Sites and subtropical rainforests. That's very key too, because we will refer to beaches, but just nearby, like where my mother lived, her actual backyard face onto a national park, some of it rainforest. Mm-hmm. What's very important here is 2 international airports, Gold Coast and Brisbane. So Kate mentioned direct flights from New Zealand in, but of course there are international direct flights. I don't think into Gold Coast, but definitely into Brisbane. So getting to the Gold Coast, is very easy from North America directly in. Doesn't have to be via Sydney or Melbourne. Exactly. there's a whole lot of other things here which I'll throw up on the screen, but I don't want to take or steal Kate's thunder. So let's go with the basics. Kate, where is the Gold Coast?
Yeah, so the Gold Coast, we're at the very southern tip of Queensland, about an hour's drive south of Brisbane. As we mentioned before, Brisbane is our key international gateway airport into Queensland. So really easy to get to if North Americans are travelling into Brisbane Airport direct. We're just an hour drive south of that, or you can take a train as well. For those that are travelling into other states, like flying into Sydney or Melbourne, for example, we do have an airport on the Gold Coast as well. So if they're spending a few nights in Sydney, Melbourne, wherever they might be in Australia, they can connect straight up to Gold Coast Airport after that. So it's a very easy flight. It's about an hour's flight from Sydney and roughly a 2-hour flight from Melbourne. So very easy place to get to. We've got a brand new airport at Gold Coast Airport, brand new international terminal there. So during the pandemic, they spent about $500 million on the airport there. So it is considered a regional airport, but if you're flying through there, it feels like you're going through a key gateway, but it's a very quick and seamless process, not like coming in through a capital city. So I guess that kind of works to our advantage.
Yeah. Now, when you say Gold Coast Airport, is that Coolangatta?
Yes, that's right. So the airport code is OOL.
Thank you. That was my next question. So it's OOL for Coolangatta, but it's officially called Gold Coast Airport?
That's right.
Okay, and Brisbane is BNE for those who may need to know that one. So again, it's recommended if you're focusing on Queensland, all of it or some of it, to fly directly into Brisbane. But as Kate mentioned, connecting, because most people will probably combine a New South Wales or the centre with Queensland, Tasmania even. Are there direct flights from Tasmania into either Brisbane or Gold Coast Airport?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So pretty much anywhere in Australia you can get directly into Brisbane and or Coolangatta or Gold Coast Airport. Now the Gold Coast Airport, Coolangatta, which I believe will be, I don't know, I've been there, I don't know how many times. I'm assuming Coolangatta by the sound of it is an Aboriginal word.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Coolangatta is also a little town, and that is literally on the border. It shares a border with New South Wales. So we have a lot of people who will visit Australia and do a self-drive. So getting into the Gold Coast is also easy driving. You go to the top of north of New South Wales, north, and just drive straight in to the Gold Coast area as well. So is the Gold Coast the same as the Sunshine Coast?
There are a lot of similarities. Obviously, we're two completely separate regions. We're south of Brisbane and Sunshine Coast is north of Brisbane. So It's only a couple of hours drive away. There are a lot of similarities between the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. We're both beachside destinations. We've also both got a beautiful hinterland rainforest area out to the west. But I guess the differences would be we do have more of a city landscape on the Gold Coast compared to the Sunshine Coast. So Surfers Paradise and Broadbeach, which are two of our kind of key tourist towns on the Gold Coast. When I refer to Surfers Paradise, I kind of say that's kind of like our downtown. It's definitely more of a city feeling, city by the sea. We do have a few sky rises, which when people see a photo of the Gold Coast, it's kind of probably the first image that would come to mind when they're thinking of the Gold Coast is that Surfers Paradise skyline. So that would probably be our big difference comparing us to the Sunshine Coast.
Right. So from a technical point of view, do you represent the Sunshine Coast, or you're pretty much south of Brisbane down to the border?
Two completely separate regions.
Okay, fine. And again, as Kate was mentioning with the high rise for our North American viewers, it's not to the same extent, but it's a very similar look to Florida and the sort of beachline high rise condos and apartments. Yeah, Miami. And we'll touch on some of the options in regards to apartments and condos in a minute. Okay, so we were just touched, if you're already there. So we mentioned road getting into Queensland and or the Gold Coast. There is a rail line, I know, which runs through Queensland and also connecting in from New South Wales. So if people are into rail travel, you can also get to Brisbane and Gold Coast via train?
Yes, you can. There is a train that goes out to our west, which is quite popular. And for those that are flying into Brisbane Airport, there is a train called the Air Train, which brings passengers straight down to the Gold Coast right outside the terminal. So that's also an option. for people who don't want to do a self-drive or don't want to book a transfer and they're quite comfortable in doing public transport. It's very easy. You literally.
So the train leaves right from Brisbane Airport?
Yes, right outside the terminal. And it will there will be a couple of stops along the way between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. And then that also connects with our light rail system, which is kind of, I guess, the best way of describing it's like a tram, but a very modern version of it.
Right.
So we have that on the Gold Coast at the very northern end of the city. So for those coming on the train, they can disembark at the light rail, jump onto the light rail, and that'll bring you right through the heart of the Gold Coast. So through Surfers Paradise, through Broadbeach, and at the moment they're continuing the construction all the way down to the southern end of the Gold Coast. So that's all happening at the moment. On my drive to work, I do have to go through a bit of roadworks, but that's it's all for the greater good of the city, so I don't mind. So it's just a really great option for people who are wanting to get around and not have maybe not feel comfortable driving. We've got some incredible public transport options. Okay,
so that's a good point in that if someone is sort of more independent, they want to get from Brisbane to their respective accommodation, you can do it via, well, you could get a taxi, of course.
Yep.
You could pick up your self-drive, or you could take the train. Now, dragging your bags around might be a bit of a discouragement for that. So definitely the train into the northern part of the Gold Coast, and then Goway, we can organise a private transfer to your accommodation of choice. But obviously getting around Brisbane, around the Gold Coast independently sounds very, very easy. So as an extension of that, obviously taxis are around, Uber, etc., would be around, plus any organised tours that Goway would organise for your clients as well.
Yeah.
So we just touched on it. I'm just looking at my questions as we go through this. So
bikes have become pretty popular too. We've got the electric bikes. It's like a public transport type system where so they're called Lime bikes. So if you come to the Gold Coast, you'll see them everywhere. I'm not sure if they've got something similar over there.
It's quite popular in all the big cities around here.
Yeah, use your phone and it's just an app, and you just basically tap on and you pay for the duration or the distance that you're wanting to ride the bike for. We've got a lot of great footpaths around the Gold Coast, so a lot of people just basically cruise around the Gold Coast on a bike. It's a really easy way to get around and see a lot more.
Yeah, now again, for people who may be interested in that or just getting around by foot in the Gold Coast area, for the most part, it's like coastal, it's flat. So it's, I remember, again, I haven't been to Surfers Paradise, or Surfers, as Australians will cut everything in half, Surfers for a long time. But yeah, it was always, to me, it was just nice and flat near the beach. Now, if you go inland a bit to the hinterland and stuff, then you're going to start getting to some hills if you're into biking or otherwise. But just for pottering around the sort of the big areas, then bikes would be a really, really good option.
Yeah.
So the big attraction domestically was one of the reasons you said you moved there, was one, the sort of the lifestyle, which a lot's to do with, I think it's on one of the infographics you gave me about how much sunshine there is. 300 plus days of sunshine each year. And of course, the famous beaches now, I'll be throwing out some imagery here to really inspire people. So outside of that really cool lifestyle, and it is a big retirement area for a lot of Australians, is it still the same draw that it used to be? I know back in the day, my father also retired there, and he did it because, well, one reason, he liked to golf, but which is, okay, I'm bouncing all over the place here. There's lots of really good golfing in the area. I don't know how many golf courses are. I'm sure
80 plus.
How much? 80?
80.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the golfers out there.
Coast. A lot of people call it the Golf Coast as well.
Oh, okay. But one of the attractions before, and this is really more a domestic conversation, was there were no death duties in Queensland. Is that still a thing? Because in New South Wales at the time when you passed away, you had to pay tax basically. And Queensland at the time of my dad, and again, we're going back a while, that didn't happen in the state because we have, in Australia, like the US and Canada, we have federal rules, we have state rules. And that was one of the draws to people retaring to Queensland. Is that a thing anymore?
To be honest, that's the first.
By your reaction, I don't think.
That
is never heard of it.
I've heard of it.
Wow, really?
I'm going to have to do some research after this.
Yeah.
I guess my understanding was that people retired here because of the weather and the warm climate.
Well,
definitely not for the tax.
A few moments later.
Okay, well, I'd
I'll
say
look
by your
into
action
that.
that might be something that was a thing, but to support your case of people retiring there, it's now just for the life, or not just the lifestyle, but that's a big influence on it as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, so apart from the beaches, which is a big attraction for international and domestic travelers, what else is there to do in the Gold Coast? Surfers Paradise, Broadbeach, etc.
There's so much to do. So the Gold Coast is a really big city. I guess when a lot of people think of the Gold Coast, they often think of Surfers Paradise, which is that kind
Okay,
of
so
city.
Kate, could I just interrupt for 1 second? So you just said Gold Coast as a city. Is it
Yeah,
technically a city?
it
Oh, it
is a
is.
city.
So
Yep,
it's not because it's always to me it was always like an area which contained Surfers Paradise and Broadbeach, etc.
it is. It's
Oh, okay,
I guess the best. It is a city, and it also is a region. So I guess the best
okay,
way of kind of describing it would be, associating it to the likes of an LA, where it's quite a big region, quite a big city, and within that you've got your smaller towns. So you've got, we've got Surfers Paradise, Broadbeach, Burleigh Heads, Coolangatta. So it covers around 415 square kilometres, which is about 260 square miles. I did my maths before the call.
oh, good.
So a really, really big area, and that obviously encompasses our hinterland area as well, out to the west. So a really big city, and it's a very diverse city, as we mentioned before. So very popular for our beautiful beaches, which you can swim at year round. We have lifeguards that patrol our beaches every single day of the year. They're paid by our local councils, so really safe to swim at. We don't get all the jellyfish and the crocs that you get further north in Queensland, so very safe to swim at. And you've also got the hinterland out to the west that we mentioned before. So we get a lot of people that will go out and do a day trip out there, or they'll do like spend a few nights out in the hinterland as well. We get a lot of families that come to the Gold Coast because we do have the biggest concentration of theme parks in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's kind of a big draw card for families.
Yeah,
It's not something that I tend to rave on about to the North American market because you've got some incredible theme parks over there, obviously. So for
but
us,
North
it's about
America does not have Australia Zoo, does it?
doesn't have the zoo. We've got Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary too, which is very popular. So that's a not-for-profit. You can come and feed the kangaroos, and it's one of the only places in Australia where you can hold a koala. All of the proceeds go back into the hospital there. So it's one of the busiest wildlife hospitals in the world at Currumbin.
Oh, okay.
And it's very close to Gold Coast Airport. So a lot of people often fly into the Gold Coast. If they've got a bit of time to spare before they check into their accommodation, they'll often go to Currumbin and spend a few hours there. It's really popular for families, but also really popular for anyone who's wanting to have that really nice interaction with our native wildlife. It's a very big property, so you can wander around. It's a really relaxing place to go, actually. So really diverse. And then obviously out in our water too, there's so much to explore out there. We have whale watching every year from May to November. We have over 30,000 humpback whales that go up the east coast of Australia. So whale watching cruises are really popular. And the great thing about doing that on the Gold Coast, you're only on the boat for about 30 minutes and you've already got these massive, beautiful, majestic creatures going along beside you. So you're not out on the boat all day. It's something that you can do, to fill a morning, and then you've got the whole rest of the day to kind of get out and explore the rest of the city. So there's a lot to see and do. The list goes on and on. We've got a stat at the moment, which is around, we've got over 150 experiences within a 30-minute radius on the Gold Coast. So whatever you can think of, more than likely you can do it on the Gold Coast, I would say.
Yeah, it is a very that's, I guess, one of the attractions about it is that it's got sort of all the modern amenities like theme parks, Australia zoos, wildlife encounters, beach, etc. But then you've got the cultural stuff, which we'll touch on as well, but also the nature stuff, the hinterland, because it's amazing how. And again, when I was home about a year and a half ago, I drove back to where my mum used to live, and it hasn't changed a great deal. It's still very, very rural. And to give you an idea of what it was like, it hasn't seemed to change much. So my mum was way up on a hill. On the farm, we called it, and her neighbours was probably half a kilometre away, just down the hill, and the neighbours used to shout at each other in a friendly way to communicate. They'd shout across the valley, and one of our neighbours had now you don't get this all over Australia, this is a rare thing, but they had a pet kangaroo. So you'd go to their house visit, and the kangaroo would be lying on the couch, as they all
Wow.
watch TV. Yeah, so it was very rural, but this is only a very, like, I know the Natural Bridge, I think, is maybe, correct me on the distance here, maybe an hour from the Gold Coast or
Yeah.
Surfers Paradise to go and see. So it's amazing how quickly it changes from this sort of modern cosmopolitan region city to stunning ancient hinterland rainforest forest as well. In respect to the water activities, is there diving
Yes,
in the
we
Gold
do.
Coast area?
Yeah, we've actually got a relatively brand new dive site which opened up last year on the Gold Coast called Wonder
Mm-hmm.
Reef.
Yep.
So that's just located off our coastline. It's around 9 submersed, I guess you would call them sculptures under the water. So it's the first of its kind in the world. You do have to have your dive certification to go out there, but we do have some local dive operators that will do like a 3-day course for people to get their PADI certification.
Yeah, do your PADI license. Yep.
Yeah, and then on the last day, they'll take you out to Wonder Reef and you get to do that dive, which is pretty incredible. So that's something just a little bit different and unique. And then we also have down the southern end of the Gold Coast, you can go snorkeling with turtles, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I guess something which is completely different altogether, but for those that are looking to do the Great Barrier Reef, it is a bit of a bucket list item for people that are coming over to Queensland. We have a day tour option from the Gold Coast to Lady Elliot Island, which is in the southern Great Barrier Reef. So that departs from Gold Coast Airport. And you fly out there up to Lady Elliot Island for the day. You get to swim in the southern Great Barrier Reef, swim with the turtles and the manta rays. You spend the day out there, and then you fly back in the late afternoon and you're back at your hotel in time for dinner, which is pretty incredible. And
wow,
I rave about that tour because, to be honest, it's some of the best snorkeling I think I've ever done in Australia. I've snorkeled up north in the Great Barrier Reef, up from Cairns. I've been out to the Ningaloo in Western Australia, and Lady Elliot Island is just absolutely stunning. It's still very pristine. The water is incredibly clear because it's in the southern Great Barrier Reef, so the water is slightly cooler. So the clarity is just incredible. So that's something that I would put on the bucket list for people, especially if they're short on time, if they don't have the opportunity to get further north up to the Great Barrier Reef, out to, from Cairns or Port Douglas. We do have that day tour option from the Gold Coast, or you can spend the night at Lady Elliot Island or a couple of nights. They do have accommodation.
Or just do the day tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to segue into just clarifying for our viewers, listening and otherwise, that the Gold Coast is not near the Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is sort of mid-Queensland and further north. And I was about to say that option is not there, but you've just corrected me in saying that there is that option to get to the Southern Barrier Reef from the Gold Coast. So that is a big plus, as you mentioned, particularly for people who are on a bit of a time crunch trying to cram a lot of Australia or a lot of Queensland into one itinerary. That's a really cool option, actually.
Yeah.
So when is the best time to visit? Now, we said, or you've told me, I know, 300 plus days a year of sunshine. So I know the answer is pretty much any time of the year. But what for our travel professionals, there will be high seasons, low seasons. So can you just go over that for them, please?
Yeah, sure. I guess if I'm talking from a personal point of view, my favorite time of the year is the middle of the year in winter. So now we're in autumn. It's beautiful out. I'm looking outside at the moment and it's probably about 26 degrees outside, blue skies and sunny. It's absolutely stunning. Winter, we get beautiful sunsets. It's still warm enough to go for a swim at the beach, but then you don't have that humidity that you would get during summer. Given where we are a subtropical climate. So summer, we tend to get a little bit more rain. It's not monsoonal. We don't have that heavy downpour that you would get further north. But, I think the middle of the year would have to be my favorite time of the year. And then I guess I would say to look at the Australian school holiday calendar.
Yes.
Obviously we are busier in those periods. We do have 4 school holiday breaks during the year. And then over Christmas, January is the biggest break. So we tend to get a little bit busier over those times. But as you mentioned before, just with our climate and the weather that we have, as you said, year round is a great time to visit the Gold Coast. There's no bad time to visit, basically.
So, Kate, you mentioned school holidays. Now, it needs to be pointed out that the the school calendar year in Australia is very different to North America. Here it's pretty much, for the most part, fall, winter into early spring, and then the kids have a full summer off. So just very briefly, I know there's a reasonable good break over Christmas, which obviously is going to be very high season. What are the other, Easter is the other time as well?
Yes, we. So at the moment, as we're talking, we're in the middle of our school holiday period at the moment, and each of the different states of Australia have different school holiday periods. Just to throw another, spanner in the mix. Yeah, but basically they have four school holiday breaks during the year, roughly every 2 to 3 months. So after the Christmas break, there's the school holidays around April. There's one in the middle of the year in winter, so around June, July. Then another one around September, October. And these school holiday breaks are 2 weeks, by the way, so they're not months on end. And then come Christmas time, so from probably mid-December through to basically the end of January. So it's about 4 to 6 weeks there is their summer break. So that's the longest school holiday period there over that time.
Yeah, and again, it's because of all the attractions that the Gold Coast has and Brisbane itself. It becomes very, very popular regionally as well. So for those out there planning, again, it's not a thing. Don't go then, but it'll be much busier, particularly at theme parks, etc., because all the kids from everywhere are moving in to check it out. So we mentioned the Gold Coast itself, the sort of cosmopolitan, modern aspect of it, the hinterland, the nature. Most people will want to go to Australia, and again, if let's just say they're limited only to the Gold Coast region, one of the bucket listings, I think, for a lot of North Americans, without putting words in their collective mouths, is having experience with the Aboriginal culture. So are there options for that in and around, be it Gold Coast or the hinterland, to have an Aboriginal encounter? That might not be the right terminology, but have some interaction or exposure to the Aboriginal culture?
Yeah, definitely. We have an operator on the Gold Coast called it's Jelligal Aboriginal Cultural Centre. So they're located down the southern end of the city in Burleigh Heads. So very close by again to the airport, very easy to get to. And they offer guided walks through Burleigh Headland, which is right on a creek called Tallabudgera Creek. It's becoming more popular. It's probably one of the best spots you can swim at on the Gold Coast too. It's beautiful, beautiful kind of turquoise waters. So Jelligal do, it's called a walkabout tour, where they'll tell you a little bit about the Aboriginal history of the area, certain important sites along that walk as well. They'll tell you, so depending on who your guide is, the males and the females can tell different stories. So there's some things that are quite sacred that only a female can talk about. For example, I've done that tour about 5 or 6 times, and each time I've done it with a different guide. And I've never heard the same story more than once. So they all have a different story to tell, which is just fascinating. They can do some really nice interactive experiences too. So if you have some very important clients that are coming to the Gold Coast, they can put a welcome to country kind of ceremony together for them when they arrive. They can do like an ochre ceremony during the walk as well. So there's some really nice things that you can incorporate into that. It is the oldest living culture in the world, so it's really quite fascinating to hear how they used to hunt for their food, and just some of the Dreamtime stories that they'll tell you about from the area. So it's definitely something that I would highly recommend doing when you're here.
Yeah, 100%. And just for our North American audience who may not know, one of the expressions Kate used was a walkabout. That's an Aboriginal term for, I was taught it was for generally a young person going into adulthood, generally the males. They'd go off into the bush and, it was a passage.
Rite of passage type thing.
Rite of passage, to adulthood. So it's become a common term in Australia. If you go walkabout, you basically disappear for a while. Dreamtime would be the Aboriginal sort of spiritual beliefs, and there's a whole lot of things in there, like the serpent ray. I'm remembering all this from school and trips to the Opera House where we were taught all this. There's the there's a rainbow serpent and all this stuff. It is very, very interesting. And what I'm very proud of, even though I haven't been home for a long time, is how Australia is now finally embracing and acknowledging the Aboriginal peoples, their rights, the acceptance that it was their land before ours.
Yep.
So the welcome to country that Kate mentioned is that it's a, you are visiting, we as Australians and any international visitors are visiting their country, and it's that welcome to country ceremony, I guess, that they can offer you as part of that experience that Kate's referring to. So highly recommended for anyone going to Australia, be it Brisbane, be it Queensland, Gold Coast, anywhere. If you can have some touch point with the Aboriginal culture, it's definitely worthwhile. So I'm going to just jump back around a few things that popped up in my head. The region, Surfers Paradise, surfers. Surfing lessons, I think, are a big draw to a lot of people there as well. So surfing lessons are available throughout, and it's pretty tame surf. So it's a good place to learn to surf. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, yeah. There's definite pockets where you can learn to surf that are a bit more protected, I guess you would say. We've got some really nice little coves like Currumbinally. We've got a lot of different surf schools that do lessons all throughout the year, even during winter. You just have to put a wetsuit on during winter. So yeah, it is a really great place to learn to surf. We've got some of the world's best surf breaks on the Gold Coast. Snapper Rocks is very popular. Every year we host one of the big World Surf League events here on the Gold Coast. We do have some of the best surfers in Australia actually live here on the Gold Coast too. So the likes of Mick Fanning. I know that Callie Slater, he has a holiday house here on the Gold Coast. Joel Parkinson. These are just a couple of big names in the surfing world that call the Gold Coast homes, or on a temporary basis when they're not out surfing the rest of the world. So yeah, it's very popular for surfing.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, on the surfing subject, my little brother was a surfer. Then he got into the marketing side of the surfing world, very well connected, and he has a place at Tweed Heads, which is just sort of south of the Gold Coast, and he's there because of just the reason you mentioned in his world, surfing world. It's a very vibrant, happening centre for surfers. So we haven't touched on it yet, but let's do it now. There are lots of accommodation choices in and around the Gold Coast. So I'm going to preface by saying I assume there's anything from 5-star down to budget hostelry type thing. And one thing I'll expand on in a minute is the condo rentals or apartment rentals for long stays. Is there anything else you'd like to expand on in regards to accommodation?
Yeah, as you said, we've got a mix of all different types of accommodation options. Right from your budget, hostels, motels style, all the way up to 4 and 5 star. We've actually had an increase in the more luxury side of things. We've got a Langham which opened up about a year or two ago. And then we've got a couple more brand new hotels which are under construction at the moment. We've got a Ritz-Carlton and a St. Regis coming to the Gold Coast in the next 2 to 3 years, which is quite exciting. So yeah, we definitely have a lot more in that kind of luxury side of offerings. There's definitely a more sophisticated side of the city, which is quite exciting. And a mix of hotel stays and apartment style stays too. We do find we get a lot of the longer stays tend to stay down the southern end of the Gold Coast. We call them, the snowbirds that will either come from overseas, probably through. I know that Goway has some groups that come through and stay down in Coolangatta, and they'll spend a month or two down there in an apartment, which is a really great place to stay. We get people coming up from Melbourne and Sydney during winter to escape from the cold, and they'll come and stay on the Gold Coast for 2 or 3 months during the middle of the year. So that's also a really popular option. I think we're quite spoiled for choice on the Gold Coast. We've got a huge amount of accommodation options available. We've got a lot of inventory available there. So, the options are quite endless. And for those that are wanting to spend a few nights out in our hinterland too, we've got some beautiful retreats, bed and breakfast style accommodation available out there too. So O'Reilly's Rainforest Retreat, which is in the Lamington National Park, it's about an hour and a half drive from the coast. That's been in operation for over 100 years. So it's quite an interesting place to go and stay. They've got a beautiful accommodation out there. You can do some lovely guided walks through there. They've got glowworms They've got a beautiful day spa, an infinity pool that overlooks the valley below. So that's also a really popular option for people who just want to break up their beach stay and get to kind of immerse themselves in a subtropical rainforest for a couple of days. That's a really nice option.
Yeah, and again, it's all close to each other, so it's not a big deal to do that as well.
Exactly.
So just want to highlight one thing too that we touched on there: the apartment, condo rental, and the snowbirds. Goway in the sort of 80s, at least out of North America, sort of pioneered that concept of not snowbirds. We have that going down to Florida all the time, but turning the snowbirds who would normally go south in the US or to the southern US, going further south all the way to Australia. So it was very, very popular in the 80s, early 90s. It sort of dropped away a bit, but now it's back. So it's a really good option for those who want to get away for an extended period of time from the northern parts of the US and Canada in the winter, where it gets really, well, to an Australian, still been here 20 odd years, it's still nasty from a cold weather point of view. So lots of options, and the Gold Coast is perfect because it's got a similar, again, vibe as we've touched on to the Florida. So it's not culturally too different, but it's still very Australian. So you do know you're in Oz. It's got all the amenities. It's good. Like, it's a good way to spend an extended period of time away.
Yep.
Everyone speaks English. It's a very weird form of English, but still English nonetheless. So it's quite comfortable culturally and physically to look at a long stay, particularly in the Gold Coast region. And as Kate just mentioned, you've got all these options to quite easily go into the cultural aspect and the nature aspect of it. And again, we haven't touched on it, but you can get really adventurous anywhere in Australia, but obviously in this area too. There's lots of trekking and mountain biking, that type of stuff as well. Now, as an extension to a cultural interaction, Australian food, or not Australian food, culinary options in Australia, but let's talk culinary options in around the Gold Coast. What are your options? Anything from meat pies through to 5-star restaurants, I guess?
Yeah, we've got a great mix. So I guess our surf club environment's quite popular, and it's quite synonymous with the destination. So for those that haven't been to a surf club before, or we call them our life-saving clubs. So it's where all our lifeguards go to train. They patrol the beach on a weekend. As you're growing up, we call them nippers, little kids. They go down on a Sunday morning and they learn all the skills to swim at the beach, to navigate the water, to navigate the waves, and eventually, as they grow up, how to actually do surf rescue. So those particular surf clubs on the Gold Coast, most of them will have a restaurant on site. You don't need to be a member if you're visiting from overseas or from interstate. You just have to sign in. It's kind of like I'm not sure if you have something similar in the States, but we have like leagues clubs here. It's kind of like something where you just sign in as a visitor. And it's kind of pub style food there, but you get incredible views. You're literally on the sand overlooking the beach. You can't put a price on that view. So the surf clubs are a great way to get a real feel. It's where the locals go and eat and drink. They do a meat raffle, most nights of the week.
That's very Australian. Yeah,
very Australian thing
raffle,
to do.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would recommend.
Just for our listeners, a meat raffle is like, it's a raffle.
Meat tray.
The prize is a meat tray, and they're often very huge amounts of meat. So steak and meat and chicken and everything else is obviously a big thing in Oz. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah, for that barbecue, people take it home, and that'll last them a good few weeks to have a barbecue. But then we've also got some, incredible cafes and restaurants dotted all across the Gold Coast. And I guess the beauty of the pandemic, in some way, we had a lot of people migrate from Melbourne and Sydney to come and live on the Gold Coast. They couldn't do it anymore. They moved up to the Gold Coast, and a lot of them had some, incredible hospitality backgrounds. So they started up their own restaurants and cafes here. And we've definitely benefited from that. So we've got a really thriving dining scene now, a great coffee scene too. I think I don't want to boast, but I think we've got some incredible coffee, here in Queensland in particular. We like to give Melbourne and Sydney a run for their money. And then some beautiful fine dining options as well. So this year we were awarded, we have 21 chef-hatted restaurants on the Gold Coast. So that's similar to, I guess, a Michelin star rating. So we've got 21 of them across the coast, which is not bad for a regional city. So they've been awarded, the chef's hat based on their service and the quality of food. And every year they have to reapply through that process to gain their hat again. So yeah, that's something I would definitely recommend. And we've got some beautiful restaurants right on the beach as well. So we've got the Tropic, we've got Rickshaws. They're some of our more popular restaurants here on the Gold Coast for people that are coming. You're literally right on the beach there and enjoying some beautiful fresh seafood. Seafood's really popular on the Gold Coast. We do have a fisherman's co-op where you can go literally up to the trawlers as they come in from the ocean with their catch of the day, and you can buy prawns, fish straight off the trawler and take that home and cook that up. But then we've also got some incredible seafood restaurants. If you don't feel like doing that, just go to one of our beautiful restaurants and they've got an incredible menu that you can enjoy too.
Right. So you can see by this, again, it's everything. Like I use the colloquial meat pies, but you got everything from like pub fare, which is affordable,
Yep.
very local. Like you can see all the local people in the pubs. And there's another one. It's called an RSL, which is Return Servicemen League, which I think you need to be signed in by a member, but still. So there's that. There's the surf lifesaving clubs. There's the cafe restaurants. And as Kate mentioned, Australia has become quite famous for its coffee and coffee shops everywhere as well, all the way up to the fine dining. So if you're there for a short time, you can select all that. Particularly if you're there for a long stay, you can basically eat like a local, live like a local, and also splurge for that special night or nights out as well. Now, we sort of started off with mentioning that when I was younger, and it's still happening, that a lot of groups, school kids, etc., sports clubs, etc., come to the Gold Coast for end-of-year parties or just to get away. So that leads into my question of anyone out there in the Goway world, our travel partners who work with groups, incentives, etc. So the Gold Coast would be a good spot for conferences, weddings, obviously beach weddings, destination weddings, or even weddings in the hinterland, and events in general. So the Gold Coast is ready and able to handle small to super large groups.
100%. We've actually got a dedicated team here at Experience Gold Coast that just looks after business events. So all of those big incentive groups, corporate groups, we've got a team that's basically dedicated to attracting them to the region. So they can definitely help you out in that regard. We've got a massive convention centre here on the Gold Coast. So we host quite a lot of, big events and expos and conferences here. And then we've got the accommodation and experiences to support that with. So, they come for business and then they stay for the fun and for the leisure and the play. So it's a great destination for that. And for weddings too, as you mentioned, for people wanting to have a beach holiday experience or have that rainforest experience. We've got the 80 plus golf courses as well. So for people who want to, have that kind of a wedding, there's something for everyone really.
And just on that note, something for everyone, unless it's gone, I believe the Gold Coast has a casino still.
We do. Yeah, we do have the casino in Broadbeach. I think the good thing about the casino, which is within the Star Gold Coast, so there is accommodation there, quite a lot of accommodation actually. They're building a brand new tower as we speak. It's not like when you go to Vegas and it's in your face. The casino is kind of tucked away within the hotel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, it was when I actually worked there for a short period of time washing dishes. Okay. Oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So that option's there for people who like to have a bit of a flutter, as we say. They can go to the casino, and then you've got some incredible dining options within that precinct as well. It's literally across the road from where my office is today. So the beach is across the road. It's not like it's glaringly in your face like you would walk down the strip in Vegas. It's kind of tucked away. We've just got the one little casino in there, but that's also a great option too.
Okay, so just one little thing. This is just more of a trivia bit as well. Unless it's changed, correct me if I'm wrong, but in New South Wales we have daylight, that's where I come from. There is daylight saving. Queensland does not observe daylight savings. That's still the way it is.
Yep.
So we mentioned before, Coolangatta and getting across into the border of New South Wales is easy. Like they're literally a stone's throw from each other. But just remember, if you do that there will be time changes because one state does not recognise daylight saving. So As we start to wrap this up, is there anything new and exciting that you'd like to bring to the attention of our travel partners about the Gold Coast and the region that's happening now or upcoming?
There's so much new stuff happening. Where to begin? I guess there's always hotels that are popping up. As I mentioned before, we've got some of those more 5-star hotels that are under construction at the moment. The Ritz Carlton, St Regis. We've also got a Mondrian, which is under construction in Burleigh, which is down the southern end of the Gold Coast, which is great to have a 5-star offering down there. Our theme parks are always investing. So we've got a lot of new rides opening up over the next year. There's a Wizard of Oz precinct opening up at Movie World later this year.
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's worth pointing out too that there are big movie studios in the Gold Coast regions. That's where one of the big film production areas of Australia is now as well.
Warner Brothers Studios is there, so we often get some of the big celebrities staying on the Gold Coast. The hotel actually next to my office, we get quite a lot of them staying there. So often when I'm getting my morning coffee, we might cross paths. Chris Hemsworth has been downstairs a few times waiting for his coffee. We had Morgan Freeman a couple of times. So,
nice.
Yeah, we do get Johnny Depp was here too, filming Pirates of the Caribbean. So we get quite a lot of those kind of big name movies being filmed on the Gold Coast, having that studio there, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up with some travel-related questions. What would be a good length of time to hang in and around the Gold Coast? Anything from, like, let's say, obviously a long stay is as long as you want to be, but let's say the average person who's including the Gold Coast as a broader itinerary, let's just for the sake of conversation, what's popular would be something in Sydney to the centre and then Queensland. Doesn't have to be in that order. So Gold Coast should be given how many days within that sort of context?
Look, ideally, I would say a 3-night stay would be a good amount of time as a minimum, just to be able to get a good feel for the destination. Obviously 5 nights would be fantastic. It's a really great place to base yourself and go and explore other parts of the city. When we were talking about the snowbirds before that base themselves here for 2 months or so, as I said, the flight down to Sydney is only an hour away. So more often than not, we get people that will go away for a long weekend just down to Sydney. Gold Coast Airport is literally just around the corner. So yeah, I would say a 3 to 5 night stay is ideal, knowing that, the vacation time that people have to be able to get away and obviously travel to Australia. And they want to see other destinations too. So, probably 2 or 3 cities whilst they're here. But yeah, 3 to 5 nights would be fantastic if they can manage it.
Okay, so there you go, 3 to 5 nights on average. But again, the Gold Coast in particular is like just prime for that longer stay, be it 2 weeks, 2 months. And as we've, I think, highlighted, Coolangatta itself from Brisbane Airport is a gateway to not only international, well, Coolangatta not, but Brisbane International, but they're both regional getaways. So you can literally, as Kate has mentioned, it's only an hour to Sydney, I guess probably 2 hours to Melbourne. Cairns is what, 2 hours, I think, from Brisbane?
Yeah, just over 2 hours.
And to the centre, to Alice or Ayers Rock would be...
I think that's around 2 hours as well.
2 hours.
Yeah.
So, it's not that far. So you could probably spoke and hub out of Coolangatta, particularly if you're there for a long stay. Generally, when we're combining states, it'll sort of be a loop Sydney or into Brisbane, let's say, Brisbane, Gold Coast, centre, Sydney and home, or back to Brisbane, etc. But again, you can use it as Kate mentioned, as a base, even if you're there for a shorter period of time as well. Okay, so Kate, is there anything else you'd like to tell our travel partners out there about the Gold Coast, other than book their clients to go to the Gold Coast?
Yeah, I guess, any support that people might be looking for, I'm always just an email or a phone call away.
Can you can you give us your email address and phone number, please?
Yeah, I sure can. Would you like me to give it to you now?
Yeah. If you do it verbally, I will put up. I'll put up a graphic underneath so people can write it down as well.
So more than welcome to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to pass on recommendations and some resources. So my email is kate.fulton, F for Fred, ULTON, @destinationgoldcoast.com. And then my phone number is, you'll have to do a +61 calling Australia. 755846229 will come direct through to me. But probably best just to send me an email and we can connect. And I've got some great resources that I can share for people that are just kind of upskilling or maybe getting some baseline knowledge of the destination. We do have a trade website, which I'll share with you as well, which has got some sample itineraries on there. We do have a Gold Coast guide, which we've just put in a digital format earlier this year. So that's got some of our new hotels, some of the best restaurants and recommendations that you can make to your clients as well. So just as an extra planning tool to be able to use or to share as well.
Okay, perfect. Now, without taking anything away from Kate's organisation and structure, we have all that information obviously here at Goway as well. But we do work in partnership with our tourism boards or tourism representatives as well. So that's why we're more than happy to give out direct contacts, because Kate and her office can also supply any marketing materials that you may need. On that point, we also have in our Goway Pro Travel Academy, we have a training module on Brisbane itself. I know we're talking Gold Coast, but also on our Queensland modules, we do go into the Gold Coast in quite a lot of depth because it is such a popular destination. So for those out there who want to learn more about the destination, you can go to our Goway Pro Travel Academy. Of course, for those listening, hopefully you do know, but you should know that we have our Goway destination specialists in-house. Many of them are Aussies. And if they're not, they've been trained all about Australia and have lived and travelled there extensively. So they've got most of the inside information that we've discussed today on options for the Gold Coast. And we can do it however you or your clients need it, be fully escorted the entire time, small group, big group, private transfers, long stays, independent, all the above, a combination of them all. We can work it all out for you. We can work with with Kate and some of the local operators there in regards to cultural experiences, trekking. So basically everything we discussed today, Goway can make it happen for you and your clients. If there's something you want to do, which we didn't bring up today, just ask us. And 9 times out of 10, we can make it happen for you and your clients as well. So as we wrap up, I'd just like to reiterate, as an Aussie, I spend a lot of time on the Gold Coast due to family and, just traveling there because it is Australia's playground. It's an awesome area to hang out in, be it a short time or a long time. It should definitely be part of any Australian itinerary. And what I learned today too is you can actually, you can touch the barrier reef from southern Queensland, which actually would save a ton of time as well by dedicating that time to other areas of Australia, because it's such a big country and it's hard to get it all in one trip. So Kate, is there anything else you'd like to let our listening and viewing public know about the Gold Coast?
I think we've covered off most of it. As I said, happy to be here as support if you ever need. And, if you're ever coming to the Gold Coast, reach out to me. Would love to catch up and show you around.
Okay. So on that note, I'd like to thank Kate. What time is it there?
It is 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning. It's late. Well, not that late. It's only about 7:30, 8 o'clock here at night in Toronto. But thank you for coming to us live from the Gold Coast. That's really cool. Anyone out there, if you have any questions, please reach out to Goway via gowayagent.com. And again, through Kate's direct information for any direct questions about Gold Coast. And again, everyone, thank you for your time today. And again, thank you, Kate, very much for your time from the sunny state of Queensland and the Gold Coast.
Thanks so much.
Okay. See you, everyone.